So yesterday at church, we were talking about being encouragers. And we were saying that if we want to live these days well, one of the things that we want to do, obviously, is partner with Jesus in what he's doing in the midst of all of the turmoil that's going around us. What is God up to? How can I be a part of that? When Jesus appears to the disciples in their lockdown after his crucifixion, he appears to them in their fear as they're hiding because of their fear of the Jewish leaders, and he says to them, "Peace be with you." So he gives them his peace. But also what he says is, "As the Father has sent me, so I'm sending you." That's in John chapter 20. And so he gives them his peace, but also he says, "Come and partner with me." You know, we've got a mission. Like, the goal is to see the kingdom of heaven come. And I've started, now that the initial sort of shock of all of this has kind of settled down slightly, just to ask a slightly different question, which is, how do I live well during this? You know, I want this to be over, and we're going to pray that it finishes as soon as possible. And at the same time, whilst it continues, how do I live well? And one of the things that I think I've settled on as something that I want to practice and grow in during these days is encouragement and being an encourager of others. And not least in part because so many around us at the moment are discouraged, and we ourselves, I'm sure, at times feel very discouraged as well. And discouragement is really fear. It's where you've lost your courage, you've lost your confidence in who you might be called to be, or what you might be able to do, or what the future holds. And we want to be people who bring boldness to others and strengthen them in that. Practically, how do you be an encourager of others? The Metropolitan Police, I've heard, work on this principle that every contact leaves a trace. And I like that. When you turn that for the good, what that means is that every contact we have with someone can be to encourage them. So there's a doctor who we interviewed during our service yesterday who I met when I was in hospital with my little boy some time ago, about a month ago. And he treated us. He kind of gave us, you know, the right medicines and the right medical advice and all of that. But you know what else he did? He encouraged us. He prayed for me because I asked him to, and he just asked after me, and he listened. He came to visit me. He made a real point of checking in with me. And so what he was able to do is give me what he had in his hand, which is his skill set, his medical skill set, but also he gave me encouragement as well. And what a tragedy it would have been if he'd only given me the medical skill set when he could have also encouraged. In the same way, you can ring somebody for one reason. You know, you can have a Zoom chat for one thing, but you can also at the same time use it as an opportunity, as an excuse to encourage and to strengthen somebody. And again, really practically, what might that look like? One of the things I think it means is to reflect back to people the good that we see in them. And so often we're bad at seeing what we're good at. We're bad at seeing our own strengths. Some of us more than others, but I think we're all pretty bad at it generally. And what can be a massive blessing is to have somebody come into your life, even if it's just for a short time, who sees the good amidst all the imperfection. Because we can all see the imperfections in our own lives as well as in the lives of other people. And we're all aware of our failings and our faults. But to have someone come in and say, I spot this and I love it about you. One of the roles that we can have is to be like mirrors, to reflect back to people the kind of the gifts and the strengths that they have. And that's a really powerful role, because as we see with Barnabas' story, that can have this huge impact. So Barney's known for getting alongside other people and championing them. So one of the people he did that for was Saul. Saul was persecuting Christians, killing Christians. Then he became a Christian, and none of the Christians believed him. They thought it was a trick to trap them, apart from Barnabas, who took a risk and went and found him and brought him into the church and encouraged him. That's in Acts chapter 9. Another example would be in Acts chapter 15. There's a guy called John Mark who ends up deserting Paul in an earlier missions trip. And Barnabas refuses to give up on John Mark, despite the fact that he's made a mistake. And he ends up going on a second mission trip with him. And Mark ends up writing Mark's gospel. And so the people that Barnabas championed and he encouraged and he served, although Barney, as far as we know, never wrote any of the New Testament, they wrote a third of the New Testament. So we can reflect back to people and we can encourage them in that way. And what we'll find is people thrive under that. I've often thought that because we're doing so many live streams and videos and podcasts and stuff like that, that at some stage, and I'm in a house with 4 little boys, at some stage I'm going to have one of those BBC interview moments where you might have seen that one where his kids run into the room and he's kind of trying to get them out of the room while they're sort of dancing, and his wife comes in and sort of drags them all out and stuff. I thought it's only a matter of time, the odds are absolutely stacked against me that at some stage I'll be doing something and my kids will run in and we'll have a kind of nightmare. But imagine one of my kids ran in when I was doing, let's say, a live stream, and they start dancing in the background, and they're sort of like swinging their arms around, they're really going for it. And then I turn around and I give them this stare that just says, who do you think what do you think you're doing? Get out. What you would see on their faces, I bet you, is them just wilt. Like a flower that's just exposed to the sun. They would just wilt, and then they would sort of droop down and they would leave with their tail between their legs. But if they ran in and they started doing their little dance, and I just started clapping along, and I just started going, wow, that's brilliant, well done, or I joined in with them even, then what would happen is their dance would become more eccentric, and it would become more joyous and more carefree, and they'd really just let themselves go. Because if I encourage them, they thrive in it. And in the same way, part of our call as Jesus' people is to see who people are called to be, how God has made them, and in speaking that into them, in cheering them on, in identifying it when they can't see it themselves, we play a role in them beginning to thrive and becoming all that they were made to be. If you want to choose to be anything this week, I would encourage you to be an encourager of others.